Welcome to the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare, the podcast for busy healthcare leaders who are ready to get out of survival mode so they can focus on what matters most. This is where the burnout stops and the real talk starts. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Carter, and each week I sit down with healthcare innovators who get it. We will unpack the chaos, laugh through the hard stuff, and get you at least 2 practical tips you can use at work right away. If you're ready to clear the chaos and lead with impact, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare, the podcast for busy healthcare leaders who are done with overwhelming workloads and burnout. This podcast is built around the big idea that you are not meant to prove your worth through exhaustion. We help you get out of survival mode by discussing your real-world pain points and giving you at least 2 practical tips you can put in place right away. Today's guest is an incredible innovator whom I had the pleasure of meeting through our mutual LinkedIn Coaches program, Ladies That Link. Jessica immediately stood out to me as someone who truly understands and leads change in a people-centric way. She's currently the managing partner at 3 Keys Consulting, and I am so excited to hear from her as we discuss the pain points around change management in healthcare. Jessica Jacobs is a change management expert. She's an organizational effectiveness specialist. She's an executive coach and a leadership development strategist with nearly 2 decades of experience. She's become a trusted partner to Fortune 20 companies and C-suite executives across diverse industries. Jessica helps those she works with dream big and then make those dreams a reality. She's a catalyst for transformation, inspiring leaders and organizations to reach new levels of success. Understanding the immense pressures faced by today's leaders, Jessica passionately advocates for self-care and team prosperity while navigating the tides of change. Her commitment to identifying each client's unique needs ensures tailored solutions that deliver exceptional outcomes. As a devoted mom and professional, Jessica appreciates the challenges of balancing personal and professional demands during major life events. Her ability to connect deeply with executives and leaders from all walks of life empowers organizations and teams to lead through change and cultivate a culture of high performance. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
Love it. I'm so excited to have you here. So, you probably know this, but I like to start each episode by asking our guests to share what has been your most chaotic moment in leadership.
Gosh, I feel like there's so many chaotic moments. Um, you know, one of the things that comes top of mind for me is that, I may not be I did not grow up in healthcare. I grew up in corporate America, and we view things as oftentimes being life or death, and they're not. Healthcare, things actually are life and death, but we take things so seriously. And so they feel a little bit different, especially when I'm talking to somebody like you who has experienced true um, chaos. What I think for me, what I've noticed when it comes to leadership is that we um, we all want something, and we all want something really special and good. And the chaos comes when we don't talk to each other effectively and we don't share what that actually looks like and what our vision for the future is. And that's when the chaos starts to unfold. Because what
Yeah.
we think everybody is aligned on, we realize months down, sometimes down the road, we are not aligned at all. And that's when we start to see the proverbial papers flying around the room, the sweat, the tears. And it comes from these moments where we just were not beginning a conversation with clear, concise communication about expectations sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that description. And to confirm this, working in healthcare, what you just described, we absolutely experience that in healthcare. Yes, the stakes down the road, several levels away from the leader are high, but the leaders are often caught between that corporate level of leadership and those frontline
Mhm.
clinicians. They really have a foot in both worlds. So what you just described is perfect because sadly it's what we deal with too, that same level of corporate confusion. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Absolutely. What exactly inspired you to pivot from what I'll call the traditional leadership path to being an entrepreneur around this topic of change management?
You know, it's funny because I had wanted to move away from corporate a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I was I was very young then. I was in my late 20s. I had really only been working for probably about like what, 7, 8 years maybe. And in corporate, I should say working. And um I remember I called a former professor of mine and he was also a mentor. And I told him I was thinking about leaving and starting my own coaching practice and consulting practice where I do both executive coaching and change management consulting. And he had known me all through my master's program. And he said to me, Jess, you could do these things. Absolutely. And you would do them really well. He goes, you're also young.
Yeah.
And he said, a lot of people are looking for folks who have the proverbial gray hairs. They've had the experience, they can empathize, they know what's going on. He's like, if you want to do it, I support you.
Yeah.
Go and do it. And also, I support you and will be here if you want to and choose to go a route of going back into corporate or
Yeah.
staying into corporate rather, and being deliberate about what kind of roles you take to get you to a place where you could be next to a C-suite leader and having meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
And I took what he said to heart and I decided it was not yet the time for me. And so I switched into a new company and I started being very deliberate about my experiences and to find ones that were continuing to let me grow as a leader and to know what it feels like to lead others and both formally and informally and to really understand what that meant. And while I was at a large telecom company, I met my business partner, Allison. And she's just one of these people that you connect with so quickly, and it feels like you've known literally forever. And probably after, gosh, maybe like a year or so of us knowing each other, we started to like dream up what might it look like if we were to start our own practice together. Um, and it didn't feel right for some time. And then about 2.5 years ago, it did. It felt like this is the time because we had so much experience together. We
Yeah.
had so much experience that we could see how successful we were inside a very large organization that had a lot of bureaucracy, that had a lot of politics, like much like most organizations, right? And we felt like if we could be successful there, we could be successful doing this at anywhere and that we weren't serving the world in the way that we felt would be beneficial unless we were doing this for multiple organizations,
Yeah.
not sticking with one. And so that's what we did. We came up with a plan about probably about 3 years ago. We started really being serious about what we were doing,
Yeah.
and we did all the things that we do with our clients on ourselves. We talked about our vision, our mission, our values. We talked about our strategy. Who do we want to work with? Who don't we want to work with?
Yeah.
Um, what are all those things that matter
Yeah.
to us? And what is the work that we actually want to do and will we do? And so that's when we discovered really who we are,
Yeah.
um, and how we started down this path of what the work that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that you took your mentor's feedback to heart, even though you knew you were called to this different approach, this different path, and had the patience and the tenacity to say, "Okay, feedback heard. Let me execute to that." And then so glad you did because if you hadn't, you wouldn't have met Allison. You wouldn't have gone down this path. So what a great mentor and
Yes,
coach who have guided you in that specific way. I think that's amazing. It's funny because I think I've shared this with you
absolutely.
before, but I have some traumatic memories of consultants who were brought in to some of my healthcare orgs who promised to lead us and our teams through big changes in a safe and effective way. But so often they failed to do that. Their inability to understand how to keep our clinicians and our patients at the center of our decision making was typically the main barrier. Or they insisted on, I don't know, implementing their special framework without allowing any revisions to it to meet our needs. What has
Mhm.
struck me impressive is your ability to clearly articulate change management pains from the leader's perspective. And you have these exceptional evidence based strategies that I would have killed to have in my hospitals. So I would love to get your thoughts on this because our listeners are healthcare leaders who struggle with change
Yeah.
management and even the pace of change. You've mentioned some of the neuroscience behind change, and I would love for you to share this with the listeners. Why is change so incredibly difficult for many of us?
Yes. So, and I really will do this, but also I have to say, I, as being an internal consultant, essentially, I work with external ones. And so everything that you have described are things that myself and Allison have felt so many times. And so I think part of the reason why we are the way we are is because we don't want that for our
Right.
clients.
Right.
And we know what it's like being inside and being outside.
Yeah.
And it's not a good feeling to have a consultant come in and kind of treat you really poorly.
Right.
And everybody matters. Everybody, you wouldn't be at the organization you're at if you didn't have a brain and couldn't do the work. So
Right.
we should be respectful
Yeah.
and honor the work that's been done. And so that's part of our model is to make sure that we do honor inside the organization because there is so much strength that
Yeah.
comes from within and we have to honor that.
Right.
Now, let's talk about neuroscience because this is real and this is important. And I think what happens often when it comes to change is that everybody, not everybody, many people view this as an art. And there is plenty of art around change management, but there's also a whole lot of science around it too. And change is hard for a multitude of reasons, but really what it comes down to are a couple of things. First and foremost, change comes down to the fact that our brains are always scanning for risk. Always, right? It doesn't matter how big or small that risk is, it's scanning and it's looking for it to protect us.
Hmm.
When change comes, even if it's a good change, that's a risk. And
Mm.
our brain doesn't like that.
Right.
And our brain tells us, stop danger,
Yeah.
right? If you think about even something as simple as you're driving somewhere and there's a detour. This actually just happened to me, Megan, right before we got on this call
Oh,
today.
yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to rush to get somewhere and to pick something up and come back. And
Yeah.
I hit not one, not two, but three detours on this
Oh,
trip.
gosh.
And my brain instantly went to, oh no, what's happening?
Yeah.
And quickly went to, okay, you know what you can do and you got this and you figure out a new path, right?
Yeah.
And it happens usually for things like this very quickly. But there's also the thoughts that go through our head. Am I going to be late? Who am I going to disappoint? Oh my God, I'm so stressed and frustrated right now. The person in front of me is driving so slow, right? Like all these other thoughts are coming in and our stress builds.
Right.
Now, think also about really good changes that happen, or traditionally good changes that happen in our life. We move in with somebody we love, we get married, we have a child, we move into a new home. These things all start off, yes, I'm so excited. This is going to be great. My life is going to be amazing. And you daydream until it happens.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, this person brushes their teeth like that? Right? Like,
Yeah.
well, or
Absolutely.
that's how you load the dishwasher, right? Like all
Yeah.
these different things start popping into your head. And then you wonder, what did I do? What have I done? Um, and you start to kind of swirl and you start to get nervous about what's happening here. And what is happening here, even in those really good changes or those really small changes, is that your equilibrium gets disrupted. So now you're not on even ground like you were before.
Yeah.
So now you've got one foot in an old way, one foot in a new way, and you can't walk straight. And
Right.
it feels uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
it sometimes feels gross or it feels
Right.
bad. And that's normal. That's totally normal to be happening to any of us, right?
Right.
And then now imagine if this is a change that you don't really understand
Right.
or one that you didn't really get a choice in. And now all of a sudden, what else might be compounded within that, right? What fears might start to pop up for you about what this might mean for you as an individual or your team or others around you. And that's really difficult. It's really hard. Now, why do why does this happen? Well, this happens because we're in a moment of grief. We're grieving our old way of being and trying to enter into a new way. And even if the old way wasn't great,
Yeah.
it's what we knew and we knew what to expect, and we're grieving that also.
Yeah.
The loss of normalcy.
Hmm.
And that makes life really difficult, especially because we don't honor the grief. We never honor the grief inside of companies, right? And when we don't honor it, it comes into a form of shame.
Mm.
And that's not a great place to be open and ready and comfortable with the
Yeah.
change that's happening. Um, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is a woman who actually had studied a lot around death, dying, and grief. And she built a curve all around this. And we actually use the same curve when we think about grief that we feel through change a lot. And it talks about the different places that a person goes, and it's not linear, but as we go through and handle a change, right? We find out about it and we're intrigued when it comes to change. Oh, actually, this might be really good. And then you learn a little bit more and you go, this is still exciting, but I actually don't know anything about this. And I really don't know what else to expect. And you start to go down this curve and you start to get to a place where everything feels different. Everything feels scary and unknown, and I call it the pit of despair.
Hmm. That's
And
a great description. Yeah.
it is the very bottom of the curve,
Yeah.
and it does not feel good to be there.
Right.
And sometimes and a lot of times we get past this, right? Because we start realizing we don't wanna be in this spot.
Yeah.
We don't like it, but this is where the grief is really laying on thick and where we really need to understand what's happening. And then we start to learn a little bit more. We start to maybe test things out. We start to see that maybe it's not so bad, this new way of being, and that there's still new ways to go. And you keep learning and you keep going. And then you get to a point where you realize this is my new life and I'm going to keep going. Now, like I said, like this is not a linear thing. You don't just go whoop, 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 and you're out. It's
Right.
not.
Right.
So many things and so many factors can shift where we go
Right.
on this. How often we slide back down to that pit of despair, how
Right.
quickly we move through the pit of despair,
Yeah.
and how we manage ourselves, our well-being, and our emotions when this is happening. And not just for us, but if we're leaders, our teams as well and our people.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
I love that you've described this because as I was thinking through that, we also know the bell curve, right, of people who are going to adopt the change, your
Mhm.
innovators, early adopters, resistors, whatever. And so when I think about your description of the grief itself, if you've got a group of, I don't know, 20 to 100 people, they're all moving through all of that in different ways and phases. So it can get
Mhm.
really complicated for a leader
Yeah.
to try to lead individuals through that. So if I'm a busy healthcare leader on my way to work right now and I'm listening to this and I know I have some projects coming up that I have to lead my team through, what are some of your top strategies for preparing the leader and the team to navigate that?
First and foremost, the leader's got to get through it first as much as they can, right? Like, I understand there's time constraints always, and sometimes all we have is 24 hours. Use that time to understand and think through what might be, what could be, and what that vision in the future could look like for you because it will serve you
Yeah.
as you continue to go through change.
Yeah.
The other is to recognize for leaders at all levels, you've all had a lot more chances and time to understand the change and understand how it's going to impact you as an individual, your organization, and the company.
Yeah.
Your teams have not had that luxury. So you're going to be much further ahead on getting to a place of comfort than
Mhm.
they are. And so finding ways to lend some empathy to your team goes a long way.
Yeah.
Additionally, I think, Megan, you brought up resistance, and we've talked about this before. I think resistance gets a bad rap, and people look at it like it's awful and it's so frustrating and annoying. And don't get me wrong, it is because you're ready. You're ready to go and you've got a group of people who aren't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's a lot of really good information that comes from those resistors and that resistance. You get to find out, number one, these people that resist oftentimes actually really, really care. They
Yeah.
care so deeply about the organization that they're thinking through all the things that could go wrong so that maybe they can make it go right.
Yeah.
They have ideas that perhaps would be beneficial to the success of your project. Open up and listen to them. They have things that maybe you haven't thought of that would really make this project soar and make it better. And there is so much beauty that comes from that type of collaboration. And it also moves folks out of the resistance bucket over into another space because we're doing things to let them be heard and to
Yeah.
feel seen.
Yeah.
And along those same lines, I think the other piece here is transparency is pure gold.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
And in fact, you shouldn't, right? You're a human being and you cannot answer every single question that comes up for somebody and have it like as if you are a, a pre-read FAQ for everybody.
Right.
You can say, I don't know. Let me find out. I'll look into that and I'll get back to you. And of course, get back to them. But it's okay to say, I don't know.
Mm.
I think that's one of the biggest um, tips that I give to my clients is just be real.
Yeah.
Talk to your people like they're people. You are a person, be one.
Yeah.
Um, we oftentimes think that leaders need to be put on this pedestal and
Yeah.
have these answers and know every single thing, and like you can't be a leader without that. But that's not true.
Right.
If we think about the leaders in our lives who have been the best for us,
Hmm.
they didn't have all the answers.
Right.
They were just real.
Yeah.
And transparency does not mean share every single piece of detail with every single person.
Right.
It means sharing what is truthful, what is helpful, and what you can share.
Hmm.
As we grow in organizations and different levels of leadership, we know things that we simply are unable to share, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But the things that you can share, you should.
Yeah. Love that. That's all. These are all great tips. And I love that you really address the internal world first before you prepare to go out and face external. I would love to hear too if is there a particular tool, strategy, tactic that you guys find works really, really well for majority of your clients? Is there whether that's the way they approach, like a script, like what do you think is one of your most powerful strategies that you guys use with your clients?
One of the things that we talk to our clients most about is what makes people more comfortable with change.
Okay.
And what you hear is, oh, start with the why, start with the why. And yes, the why is absolutely important. Do not get me wrong. Like you need the why, but
Yeah.
you also need as part of the why of what's the organization's strategy?
Yeah.
How does this change fit into this strategy?
Yeah.
How does person A, B, and C fit into both the change and the strategy?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what I find is that so many people cannot actually articulate the strategy of the organization.
Yeah.
And that's at every level,
Yeah.
including the very top.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And when we can actually sit down and very clearly state the strategy is X, when we do this change, we will be getting closer to that strategy. And in doing so, and the work that you're doing over here absolutely makes that happen,
Yeah.
right? Especially in a time like we're living in today, where there are so many layoffs that are happening, regardless if you're in a stable industry or not, apologize if you hear my dog. But regardless of whether you hear, whether you're in a stable industry or not, everybody is scared.
Yeah.
And if you're able to say like, and you know for sure that this is going to be something that they can see themselves in the future and it's true,
Right.
don't hide it.
Right.
Share that
Right.
and share what that looks like, what that vision of the future is in a way that's going to really tug at a person's heart and brain.
Right. Right. I love that. That's great. Is there any other what I'll call chaos whispering practical tips or strategies you would like to share with the listeners today?
Um, I think what I see when chaos really erupts is when we're not clear on the way in which we set our expectations
Yeah.
or we delegate or the way that we give feedback.
Right.
And so I would say, and that all applies to major changes and transformations as well.
Yeah.
And I would say, first and foremost, clarity is queen. You need to find ways to make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, Clarity is not about confrontation. It is about being concise of what either you're experiencing, you're seeing, or you need to see happen.
Yeah.
And people, I find, are hungry for that information.
Yeah.
And the chaos, at least the internal chaos, slows a little bit when we know and we can understand those things.
Yeah. Love that. That's a great tip. I love that so much. And a powerful reminder when we get really busy and distracted by the tasks and just
Yes.
firefighter mode and trying to get through the day itself while rolling out typically multiple changes with multiple departments all at the same time to really make that intentional time to pause and remember the internal address for ourselves
Hmm.
and for the team. Well, we know that work is certainly a huge part of our lives, right? But it's not necessarily our whole life for most people. And we all need to be able to experience joy and laughter even outside of work. So I like to ask every guest, where are you going to get laughter in your life right now?
Um, I get it from my kids
Mhm.
mostly because they're so stinking funny all the time. I also seek out laughter, whether it's seeing a comedian or watching a funny movie or getting silly and my husband and I being silly with each other, being intentionally silly and fun and laughing
Yeah.
um, brings out, I think, a different side of you, a more playful side that just really, I think, shifts our own brain chemistry.
Yeah, that's great. And your kids are super cute. Yeah. How old are they?
Mhm. I have a almost 11-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah, those are such fun ages. Are there any comedians or shows or movies that are just cracking you up right now?
I have become obsessed with Jeff Arcuri,
Okay.
who I don't know if you know him, but he
I
does like a
do.
lot of audience work, and it's always hilarious what he does.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I
he's never mean, which I'm not like a fan of like mean comedians. He's
Yeah.
always just silly.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang, and who she
Oh,
brings
she's so
on.
good.
I
Yes.
mean, and I think her most recent episode, I think, was like a live recording where she brought Sebastian Maniscalco in to talk to her, and I love him so much because he's such a physical comedian. The way he moves his body and his hands, and I mean, it's a
Yes.
full performance. Hearing the two of them talk to each other, highly recommend that episode. Hysterical. I mean, I was crying in the car. I was laughing so hard. So gotta love that. Gotta love it.
I'm gonna have to give it a listen. I do love Amy Poehler. She's great.
Yeah. Yeah, same, same. Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to share your exceptional wisdom and your insights with all of us today. And I hope you know how precious you and your team are to all of us. So thank you for what you do. And thank you for tuning in, listeners. Every one of Jessica's strategies and tips can be found in this episode's show notes. You can also find links to connect with her directly. Cheers to each and every one of you, Chaos Whispers. Until next time. Thanks for joining us on the Chaos Whispers of Healthcare. If today's episode resonated with you, please be sure to follow this podcast, rate, and leave a review on your favorite platform. I'm Dr. Megan Carter, and I will be back next week with more real talk, fresh strategies, and guests who are redefining what it means to lead with impact. Want to keep the conversation going? Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and download free tools and resources from my website. Both links are in the show notes. Let's heal this broken healthcare system together, one day at a time.